Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. Earlier this week, I got the opportunity to interview Nancy Linari. Nancy has worked on a lot of projects over the course of her career, including live action, a lot of animation, and of course, Aunt May from Insomniac's Spider-Man video games. I had a great time talking with her. She was really nice, and I really appreciated getting her insight on basically constantly trying to learn and grow in this business because you cannot be stagnant in this business. Hope you guys enjoy the interview. Here we go. Thank you, Nancy, for speaking today. I really appreciate it. First of all, I want to ask, how are you doing today? How are you
I
doing?
am fine. Jordan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Had a long day at work, but this is definitely making up for the long day. So,
What's your other work?
I work at an office. I answer phones and deal with customers on a regular basis. So
Customer
it
service, not easy.
it's not. No, it's not. But
Yeah,
I overall enjoy it. I feel like I do a
good,
good job. That's really what
good.
matters.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things I want to talk about today. But first of all, I just want to ask, what was your kind of introduction into wanting to get into acting? 'Cause that's always a fascinating thing for me.
Okay. Um, I grew up in a suburb of Chicago in a very Italian community. My parents are first generation, but we lived with lots of people who were lots of my friends' parents were born in Italy. Anyway, I had we lived next door to my grandparents, and my aunt was an opera singer. So my
Mm,
family had a construction company. We were very much kind of blue collar artisans, but we grew up with a lot of opera and music because my aunt was a singer who did well. That's what she did for a living. So I grew up with that all the time, and we did dance classes and things. And then I started to do and the dance class for me always meant what was the recital and what was the costume. So
mhm.
that's my sisters and I both. My sisters and I, all three of us. I shouldn't say both. Anyway, so I started to do it in grade school a little bit in town. There was a couple of plays we did, and then I did it in high school. And one teacher in high school in particular encouraged me to look at this as a career, not just
Okay.
a hobby. So
Mhm.
I was a drama major in college, and then came back to my, Chicago area and started working very soon. Got my, I worked in amusement parks for a couple summers where you sing and dance for, you do 45-minute shows, you change your costumes 15 times, you do, just what you do when you're young.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just got all my union cards in Chicago and started working from there.
That's awesome. Like the idea of
Mostly
amusement
theater.
parks. Yeah.
When I was in Chicago, I did plays and musicals, and then I worked for Second City for a couple years. I performed with them, the improv
Okay.
comedy group, for a few years.
That sounds awesome. Like, it sounds like you found your passion early on, and that's amazing. Because a lot of times people find like, maybe I'll try this, but like you've early on, like I want to do this.
Yeah, well, I did wanna do it, and I guess, when out of college at 22, you don't my family never said don't because they had, performers in the family. My sister was a singer. I mean, it just was it so I got enough success early on and got in the unions that I was able to make a living. Because if
Gotcha.
you can't make a living at what you wanna do, then
Hmm.
I think you find other things to do, so and I haven't always made it it
Hmm.
varies. I've been in this business a long time, so sometimes it's grand and sometimes I'm not as busy as I would like to be.
Yeah, because like when I look at like your credits, like you do a lot of voice work, and then you're doing some movies and TV. Like, there's a lot of variety. So I think that also helps is that there's a lot of options, so
Yeah,
that you're not just doing or just trying out for the same thing over and over and over.
I always say my career is a patchwork quilt of different contracts to work under, and that's how I've kept going all these years. And when it starts to slow down, I think, "Oh, maybe it's time to do," I did animation, I'd never done animation. Until I
Hmm.
did video games, I never did video games, and then, I started dubbing a couple years ago, and then I do audiobooks, and, you just it just kind of it's all acting to me in just a different venue. Just and I still do theater when I can because that's my first love is theater.
Your first passion that really
Live live performance,
everything.
yeah.
Yeah. When you got into doing camera work from theater and all that, was that a challenge for you to like, okay, now the stage, like I don't have a stage now. It's all about the camera and where it's placed. Was that a challenge getting used to that?
Well, in Chicago is when I got my SAG and after cards, and that was a big, lots of commercials made in Chicago in the '80s and '70s,
Mhm.
'80s, lots of big ad agencies based there. So the first couple times I did it, I did auditions, they would be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. You don't need such a big voice. We're right here. We're right
Hmm.
here." And,
Hmm.
you sort of figure it out. You just I mean, but I did figure it out, and I took a lot of classes and things and, because it's a different I think acting is acting, but you
Hmm.
have to adjust whether you're in a 1,000-seat house or a 99-seat house, whether you're, you know, in a multicam show, which is more like theater, or whether you're in a, the camera's right here. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I did learn. I did learn it. But it was all everything takes a different skill set, but it's all acting, you know.
And it's all about learning and progressing as you're doing it. Because if you're kind of stagnant and not wanting to learn or not wanting to try something else, then you're going to be kind of stuck and you're not growing as an individual, not growing as an actor in this business. So,
Well, and when I start something new, say you're here. I don't want to say I'm ever up here because I'm not a
mhm,
star of anything, but I always worked. You're here in whatever area you're working in, but you want to start in something new like animation. You don't get to start here. You got to start down with the
yeah,
beginning because there's lots of people who've been working here, 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 here.
mhm,
Um, yeah, so I'm kind of a class junkie. I have no problem. I love classes. So I'll take, I still work out with an improv group. Once a week, I go back and take acting classes. I take dance classes because I, you kind of have to be adaptable and
yeah,
ready.
ready for the next thing because there's
Yeah.
always something new.
Yes.
And I was looking at your credits, and I was like, you voiced Morticia in the Addams Family, like that's, and then you were in Animaniacs. You did like a lot of really cool things,
I did a
you know.
play when I first came here to town. I
Hmm.
auditioned for a play and I did a play, and the director was Gordon Hunt, who was for a while the casting director at the Mark Taper Forum downtown, the theater, but he was casting and directing at Hanna-Barbera. So he
Oh,
brought me in to do a few small roles, and that was I mean, getting a series was remarkable. It was a great cast. It was John Aston and Carol Channing and Rip Taylor, and not to mention all the other Rob Paulson, who I think's been on your show, and Jim
yes.
Cummins and
Hmm.
Edie McClurg and Debbie Derryberry, and it was just these Jeannie Elias. Everybody was kind of, I was a newbie. I was like in
Hmm.
a coma compared to these people in a animation session.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a really fun part to play.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, Rob was great to talk with, like to see all the things he's done in animation. Like it's all about your opportunities and putting yourself out there. And I
Rob
think,
is the top. Rob is the tops.
yeah,
Nicest man
yeah.
in the world, but he's also just wildly, crazily talented. You're just kind of
Mhm.
okay. I'm just going to sit back and let Rob go.
Yeah,
You
let him do his thing, because yeah, and there's a lot of those people that are like that, that really have that have a lot of work under their belt, but also they are the most genuine person, and I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
the most important thing
Oh
to
yeah.
still keep to be yourself. Like, don't let it get too in your head. I think that's really, really good.
Yeah.
Do you I looked as well. I'm currently watching a show called Ben 10,
I
and
did.
you vo
I did several episodes of Ben 10.
yeah, I noticed that. I'm like, "That's pretty cool," because I love that show. I love that franchise to death, and seeing that, I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool that you worked on that show. That's awesome."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that. When it comes to animation, because you said that when you jumped into that, you were doing theater, then you're doing, commercials and everything. When it comes to just doing voice, was that something that felt more natural or maybe more of a challenge as well? Because now you're able to, yes, I can create a character without actually physically playing it, but now I have to create the character with just my voice.
I
With
will tell you that translating from stage to television and film was easier for me.
Mhm,
Animation, I feel like it took me a while to figure it out. It's a different
mhm,
energy, and it is a totally different imagination because you have to imagine every single thing that's happening in the scene.
mhm.
So I took classes. I observed on every session I did. I paid attention to the real top players. So I learned a lot from watching other people work. Um, but
And that's
and I'm not the queen of animation. There's like you're gonna you. But I work and I get jobs and so again.
and yeah, and it's all about like pushing yourself, but also knowing maybe like, okay, here's my limits, but I can push further. I can push past this and continue to learn, continue to grow.
Well, that's where classes and workshops, and sometimes I have workout groups with friends who do this, where you try all the stuff, you figure out that you can do a lot more than you're doing, and
Hmm.
you can stretch and grow and make wildly bigger choices. Because the best animation people just make terrific, big, committed choices. And it's if you're not really, how to say this, if you're not really experienced in it, you can be a little shy about making those, reticent to make those choices. But it's all about choices. It's all acting is about making the choice,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
committing. But animation and animation is a specific, not not all people can do animation.
Hmm.
I don't think just because you can act, you can do animation. It's a really specific skill set, and the people who do it are so facile at it.
Hmm.
Characters and
And like you said, making those choices, and then like making like okay, this is their own unique take. No one else would have probably come up with this idea for that, and
yeah,
maybe that's what helps him gets the job. You never know. Uh, I think when most people, well, at least from I really recognized you from was from Spider-Man 2018, and I when I was speaking with Stephen O'Young, who was Mr. Negative, who you,
oh, yes, I know Steven, of course.
yeah, you had some interaction with this character a little bit in the first game. He was telling me when he auditioned, he didn't know it was for Spider-Man, let alone the character he played. When you went and auditioned, were you aware
No,
or
no, no. The
okay,
joke is the character I auditioned for was called Aunt April.
April, okay.
April, not May,
Uh-huh.
April.
Mhm,
And I'm telling you the truth, I had no clue. But the coincidence was at the same time I'm auditioning for the video game, Aunt April, I'm auditioning for a cartoon for Disney XD
mhm,
where I can't remember if I was an aunt or a grandma or something. And I have no idea what they're for. But in the same month, I get booked as Aunt May on the Spider-Man Disney series,
mhm.
different time in Peter's life. So she's, I guess, younger.
Yeah.
And then I get booked on the video game Peter's older and it's Aunt May at the same
Mhm,
exact time. And neither area of the Spider-Man, neither area of Sony knows that I'm working on the other one because you sign every NDA in the world. So I'm
mhm.
like, what is this that in a town this size, I should get both of those opportunities and
Yeah.
then actually book them? So, yeah, so I felt I was destined to be Aunt May. That was just meant to be.
It's awesome, and honestly, thinking back on the 2018 game specifically, your character was so pivotal to the whole game, and I think you
Yeah,
did a great job portraying that character because not
thank
only
you.
because of the ending, which is just heartbreaking,
Mhm.
it's just the way your character comes across to Peter and everything. I think it made the game so much better because of your connection and what you did.
Aunt May is a wonderful character. She's a supporting character in that franchise, but she's a wonderful character. And I in both the cartoon and the video game, the cartoon Robbie Draymond was my and this Yuri, who we just got along great. So acting with Yuri in those scenes was just easy as pie, just
Mhm.
easy as could be.
Did you do did you do the motion capture for Aunt May
Oh,
or
I did motion capture, facial capture, and so I was in the suit. In the suit, all marked up with dots and all the whatever they call the little balls on you. And then
Mhm,
I also did another session where uh, they it was just the still cameras where they do your actual face, as
mhm.
well as doing the on set stuff and then going into the booth and doing whatever was left voiceover. Yeah.
Okay.
And
That
it's
def
she even kinda had my hair
Mhm.
because she had a different drawing, and after they worked with me a while, they're like, "Well, what if we give her Nancy's hair?" So,
Yeah, that definitely helps, right? Yeah. And I was wondering about that because I think motion capture, like, it really enhances because you're not just doing the voiceover, you're actually playing the character, so they're literally following your performance in those scenes. I think that's probably benefiting to voice actors, so they're not just stuck behind a booth all the time. Now they can actually perform the character and bring it to life. Like, now you're more a part of it.
yeah, but I'll tell you, if you're creating the character and you're just doing the voice, I shouldn't say just, and you are contracted to do the voice only, you're still doing that same work. You're just doing it in front of a camera. And then some other terrific motion capture performer
Yep.
is coming up with the movements. I mean, so I don't know. It's kind of the perfect melding of things. It's fun to be able to do it all. It's really fun. So,
Yeah. I wanted to ask specifically about the ending.
mhm.
So, how did you feel about the ending for your character? Because I mean, I think it's the right choice because saving the city versus her. But how did you feel playing her? Like, do you think that was the right decision or
Well, it's kind of a cute story when we do the table read, the big table read when everybody's there,
Mhm.
because I don't even remember if I saw the script before the table read. Everything is very
Yeah.
proprietary. Um, and we're reading it and we're reading it and it's very moving and lovely. And I'm thinking, great, I get into the Marvel franchise and I'm gonna die the first time I'm. So we do it, and I go in and do the motion capture a few days here. I do facial, I do a few days here. We shoot the death scene, and I can tell it's a really good scene. It's a really nice scene. And I come back a couple months later to do a different scene, and they say, Nancy, we like Aunt May and Peter so much, we're going to rewrite the ending. And we wrote a different ending for it. So I'm like, oh, cool. So I go back, we shoot a different ending. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And then I come back like a month later, or I'm in the studio or something, and they say, Nance, we decided the story doesn't work as well if Aunt May doesn't die. She kind of has to die if you're going to be true to Peter Parker's heroic nature, I think. So, and to Aunt May would have wanted him to let her go. But still, as an actor, I spent the rest of the sessions saying prequel, prequel,
Yes,
flashbacks. Like somehow I want to get back in here.
which they do in Spider-Man 2. They bring you back.
No,
I loved it. I loved it
that
so
was the
much.
best phone call I can tell you when they said they want to bring you back for a flashback.
You're like,
So wonderful. Yes. Yippee, yippee.
they should do a prequel of it of
I,
when he starts out. They should.
from your lips, I say it's a perfect idea.
Yeah, I mean they should. I mean, not just to bring your character back, but just to where's the introduction and how does Aunt May fit in all this? Because she's known,
Yeah.
but is there like an inclination where it's clear as day? She knows.
I
Like,
think you're totally onto something here.
yeah,
And
I'll call Insomniac right now. I'll get a
please
hold of
let
him.
them know that that's what it should be. Thank you.
I'll let them know, like just because Nancy's like, I need to
Yeah.
play Aunt May again. I have more to say for this
Yes,
character.
I feel there's more of Aunt May in me, and we want her out. So
Well, speaking of, because I was actually gonna bring up that Spider-Man series. So with that Aunt May, so like, was your approach similar or was it different because he was in a different part of his life and you had more time with the character?
well, it was different because we worked more often on it, every week doing them.
Hmm.
Um, it's funny, they're both really well written, very well written. So
Hmm.
Aunt May's role, but there's a big similar. Aunt May's role in this is she supports and loves Peter,
Hmm.
and she can't know too much about what he does. So there's so I don't know if it was easy. I mean, the truth is I was playing opposite two different Peters,
Hmm.
and they were playing them at different ages
Gotcha.
because the story, if Robbie
Hmm.
was in high school, Peter was in high school in the series. So
Hmm.
it's just, I don't know, it kind of all kind of made sense. It was certainly a character that was not a stretch for me to play.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It felt more natural. Like it felt like I can see myself as this character potentially.
In
You
either
know?
one. Yeah, sure. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of things, I would flatter myself, but a lot of things about Aunt May that I have kids. I'm caring, I'm maternal, I believe in the
Mhm.
greater good. There's all that kind of stuff that suits the character.
Yeah. And speaking of that, so when you're playing roles that are familiar, is there ever times where you're playing a character or you're going out for an audition for a character that maybe would be challenging, but you want to be up for that challenge?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. There's lots of times. I mean, that's acting. It
Yeah.
just happens that there was an ease to I think it's an ease to Aunt May and me as the
Hmm.
actor. There's some parts that just you fall into more easily.
Yeah. And then the ones that you don't, you go, okay, how do I approach? Like, what's the right approach for it?
Well, I think it's just for me. it's all kind of the same way I've been doing it since I started. And it's who's the character, what does she want, what's the past, what's the history, and then
Mhm.
of course for animation, or video games, it's the stakes are always so much higher than television or film. Well, not I shouldn't say then. They're always high in animation and video games. You're
Yeah.
the ones I've done at least. And and it's a style. It's the same thing as I said. It's a style you don't do. I'm trying to think of you don't do Law and Order the same way you do Abbott Elementary. It's a different
Yeah.
show. So that's the same with video games and animation.
You've done a lot of variety of projects. What's a genre that you really love to be in? Like if it's drama or is it comedy? Like what do you feel like is most familiar to you?
Well, I think that's a good question. I tend towards comedy. I think of myself as a funny person. People
Mhm.
who know me would call me a funny person. So I feel that um, everything about me is suited to comedy. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't say that's all that I'm comfortable doing. It just seems to be that's where I would put myself first off the bat. If people would say, "Oh, Nancy, she's funny."
Gotcha. So
Mm.
that just feels more natural. Is there a genre you aren't like you haven't done too many things with that you'd like to maybe do more with? It just hasn't happened yet, or
I would do more of almost anything.
okay.
Everything. I'm trying to think if there's more. You mean as a voice actor or just in general?
Anything like anything that like I would love to do more. Let's say hypothetically, I would love to do more horror. I like to do more. I mean, there's dramedy, like there's mixtures of stuff where they try to blend genres together.
Well, dramedy is a great form. It's
Hmm.
it's closest to real life to me. It's
I
there's
agree.
always something funny, whether we like it or not, about our most serious moments. There's
Yes.
always something, to takes you down a peg because it's funny. Um, I don't know if there's anything. I mean, I would do more animation, I guess. I would
Hmm.
do more video games. I would do all of that more.
Because you
Uh,
have more because you have more freedom. Because then essentially, well, Aunt May, like she's you in the game, but with a lot of animation video games, you're playing a character that you maybe physically could not play because it's
oh,
someone.
sure, you're playing creatures half the time. You're not even
Yeah.
actual humans. Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess the freedom is fun. I'm kind of just your basic blue collar actor. I like all the work. I'm happy to
Hmm.
get most jobs. I'm pretty much live in the ooh, they've hired me again, yippee kind of.
Just like whatever comes my way, I'm like, all right, I'll take it. That's good.
Yeah,
That's
and
good
I
for
don't
me.
know that I can afford to be really fussy. I mean, been doing this a long time, and there are things I probably wouldn't do if I didn't need to, but
Hmm.
I pretty much like the career of an actor. It's not easy, and as I get older, it's a different career. It's always different when you're older.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, not answering that question very but well. I don't know.
No, no, it's okay. No, it's just you being just like if there's work and it makes sense for me to do, I want to go for it and I want to try to get it.
Yeah, and
Right?
I've always loved sitcoms. I love half
Mm,
hour multicam, and
mhm.
there are more of them on now. For a while there weren't.
Yeah.
Um, like I don't know if you watch them, but I love to be on Abbott Elementary. To me, it's top-notch writing, it's a perfect cast, it's
Mhm.
directed it just everything about it to me is A plus. So, yeah, I'd like
I
to
mean,
be on a perfect sitcom.
yeah, I mean, you're right because there was a number of years where there was none, or if
Yeah,
there were, they were very few.
yeah, we didn't have many, but that happens to be I mean, it's like how Modern Family was when it came on the scene, you were like, "Oh my gosh, they've revived this whole
Mhm.
genre."
I think that happens across the board for anything. I think there's been a renaissance in horror films recently where a lot of times it was just like, okay, why? Like, okay, but people worked on it and that's great, but now I think things have changed. In westerns were a big thing back in the day,
Yes,
and that's dropped off quite a bit. There's not that many anymore.
but now we're back. We had Yellowstone and we have, I'm trying to
And then
think of
Kevin Costner's come out like a Horizon kind of franchise films that
yeah.
are kind of based around that kind of concept. So
But
they're definitely out there.
do you remember Dancing with Wolves when it came out? Are you too young for that? Because Dancing with Wolves came out at a time when there weren't a lot of westerns, and here was this western this
Hmm.
big old Western, you know?
I think I was young, but I did see it. Of course, Tombstone with
Yes,
yeah, that
yes.
phenomenal. That's my favorite movie of all time. I love that
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
I love it. You would think seeing me as wearing like an X-Men shirt, talking about Spider-Man, Tombstone, but I love that movie to death. It's so
Mhm.
well done.
Yes, terrific.
Yeah, I think those kind of movies do help the genres, like any genre. Like if it's a good film, it's going to help.
Well, I don't think the genre goes away. I just think there's things that are sort of in vogue or
Hmm.
out of vogue, and I think that somebody makes a terrific version of any genre, and suddenly the genre is back, you know?
Yeah, so suddenly the tides have turned where
Yeah.
now the studio, all studios want to get in on, like,
Yes.
oh, this was a big hit. Let's make our own. Let's
Yeah,
do our own.
exactly.
I wanted to ask real fast because you brought up your improv group that you're still with. Is that something like you always see yourself doing?
I don't perform with them, to be clear. I'm just in a
Okay.
workshop where we get together
Okay.
and it's like
Okay.
a class, a workshop. Um, I really don't. I really don't. I love good improv, and I just saw a good group, about 2 weeks ago that I liked in LA,
Mhm.
and I go to it. I don't really see myself doing it. I always thought I
Okay.
was a better actor than I was an improviser. So,
Okay. But it keeps you on your toes and it also kind of helps you in the moment to kind of think of something
oh,
like,
yeah. Oh, yeah, and I
yeah.
love it. It's fun. Improv
Hmm.
is fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you ever do any improv work when you're like actual like doing animation, or do you ever see like is there any improv in those kind of
there's
projects?
there's an improv in a lot of things, and some things where you're not allowed to
Hmm.
vary from the script, but a lot of times, and we all often put our own. I think with cartoons, animation, there's a lot of improv. I'm sure when you interviewed somebody like Rob, you could see that
Oh yeah.
he's like a machine. It's yeah.
Yeah, he would go off and just start talking as the character. And I'm
Oh yeah,
sitting there going, "Oh, okay, now I'm talking to this person." It's a lot, but also like you're right, there are certain projects that they don't allow it or there's very minimal, and then there's other times like, okay, let's just see what happens. Like because now you're interacting with the other actors in the booth, maybe something else comes out of that
yeah.
that works better than what was written. Nothing against the writing, it's just what if there's something organically in the moment that might work.
Yeah, it's funny because when I started out, I performed with Second City, which is about improv. You do a set every night, but you work on the stuff, and then you set a show, and then you improv at the end of the show. But
Mhm.
in that show that you've set, you can improv a little within it. But also at the same time, I come from a theater background, and in theater, the playwright is the king or queen. So don't mess with lines in a play. The drama. So was kind of both things at the same time. And some television and film is that way, and some of it is much looser. Um, so I'm trying to think if I do
Gotcha.
too much, if I take too much. I can't always take a lot of liberty with like a video game because I don't really understand the world that well all the time.
Mhm.
Those worlds are so elaborate in video games to me, so creative and elaborate that I don't think I could do much improvising because I don't know if I understand it well enough.
'Cause they'll be like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
Well,
I tried, and it's like,
yeah.
"No, well."
Well, that doesn't happen in this world. Okay, okay. In this dystopian world, that's no longer. Okay, thank you.
Or it could. It could
Yeah,
be. I mean,
yeah,
maybe, like, what if you make changes because I think it might work?
yeah.
Something
It's
like
the
that.
same as prequel. You might
Yep,
have to help me out with that.
yep,
Okay.
yep, more prequels, all the prequels. Um, are you working on anything upcoming right now that you can talk about? Or I know there's a lot of, like I said, NDAs and stuff you sign. I know.
No, the last couple things I've done have
Mhm.
been I can't talk about.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Um, I can say I can say there's a couple of fun video game projects I've worked on.
Okay. All
That
right.
help.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's exciting, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
working on something and no one knows about it, but it's like the hope is that it's gonna hit and everyone's gonna love it, and
Well,
you
the funny
know.
thing about it is, we don't we know we do these things and we are not allowed to talk about them for years sometimes. Video
Mhm.
games are years. They're, take a while to make.
Yeah, they take what like they do the voice first, I think, and then they go in and do all the work, and then you go back and do more sessions and stuff. I mean, and it's long sessions too, for like 4 hour sessions from I hear from some people. Like it's very intense.
Well, and a motion capture session is an 8-hour session usually.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So But I mean, if you're having fun at the job and it's fulfilling, what you want to do as being in this business, then it probably isn't that big of a deal. At least
Well,
I.
a television or film is an 8-hour day too, sometimes
Mhm.
overtime, 8 or 9 hours, so, yeah.
Yeah, so it all works out.
Yeah, it
Uh,
does.
yeah, it all works out. Well, I appreciate you speaking with me today, Nancy. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for all the things you've done.
Thank you for inviting me. This has
Of
been
course, of course, it was great chatting with you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
you
And
too.
hoping for.
Where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Michigan.
Where in Michigan?
About 2 hours outside of Detroit. I'm in a small little town. Moved here because my wife, her family's from here, so moved here, and we're getting our first home soon, actually. So
Yay. Michigan is beautiful too. Michigan's a beautiful state.
it's yeah, the weather's kind of crazy a little bit, especially in the winter time, but you know,
I'm from Chicago, so you don't even have to explain to me. I get
yeah.
crazy weather. I
Yeah,
kind of miss crazy weather. I love winter.
it actually wasn't that bad of a winter here. So I'm surprised, but
Yeah.
usually it's really bad. But yeah, it was my first year moved here, and when I've visited in the past, it's been chaotic.
Yeah, it can be
But yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
anyway.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
thank
well,
you very much.
no problem. Thank you so much for speaking to me, and I hope you have a good rest of your day and a good
You
rest of your week as well.
you too. Thanks.